Donepudi, and welcome to my senior project presentation. First, I want to give some background to who I am and what I did before senior projects. Freshman year, I took technical drawing, which is more on 3D modeling and SolidWorks. Sophomore year, I took introduction to programming, which gave me some exposure to Java and just general programming. And I got more interested in it, so I took AP Computer Science A, and now I'm here. So my company is Compute Solutions. I want to be as diverse as possible, which shows really in the colors, because I like really as many colors as possible. I want to make apps, which is why I have these like little boxes, and the letters in it represent all the programming languages I want to learn, like Java, Swift, JavaScript, and a lot more than that. So what is my project? I'm basically building a prototype of a web application that uses WebSockets. Well, in general, I'll explain what WebSocket is later, but you can pretty much use it for anything. But I decided to focus more on data centers and how they manage their customer server configuration and everything. And the main programming languages I used were HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and Java. My project objectives were to become proficient at server-side programming and browser-side programming, while at the same time discovering how scripting languages are different than object-oriented languages. So one object-oriented languages are like Java, which is the one I'm more used to, and scripting languages, which is what I was going to learn using JavaScript, and how those differ, and how they like really program and how they process. My second objective was to understand how servers and browsers communicate with each other with and without WebSocket technology. My expert advisor is Sai Papanaka. He's a consultant at Oracle. He's pretty much proficient at anything. You just give him like a piece of code and he'll just understand in some time. Chandler's with Donepudi, my dad. He's proficient at Java and he's like good at testing stuff and how to like fix some of these Java errors. Donepudi, he's my uncle. He's the one who gave the project idea in the first place. So if I get stuck doing like the WebSocket stuff, I can just either ask him for like suggestions or we both bounce ideas back with each other on how to like either fix a problem or how to move on with it. And Lucas, he's like quick help with like all like the minor errors I had with like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and Java. The main technologies I used were GitHub, NetBeans, Glassfish, and Codecademy. I used GitHub primarily as a web hoster, but I also used it to put all my code in so that like other people can look at it and give some feedback to it. NetBeans was my primary IDE, which if you don't know what that is, it's like where you pretty much program in. And Glassfish, which I pretty much use as like as my container, and which flowed really nice with NetBeans, and it's also pre-installed with NetBeans, so it's easy to use. And to learn all the new programming languages like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, I used Codecademy and went through all their tutorials and topics that they went over. The main research I had to do was research how to build websites using HTML, CSS, learn how JavaScript, how the programmers use it, how the movement operate, and understand how servers and browsers just communicate just in general. So I want to start off first by asking like, what's a website, which pretty much everyone here knows the answer to. Well, at its core, it's just an HTML document, which people used when it first came out, just to like put some information there and just share it with other people. But as it like got more public, people like started to realize like it's not as personalized. It's not like it's really bland. It didn't look that great. So like here, this is just my company website. This is just using HTML. There's like no CSS or JavaScript involved. But this looks fine if you're just like sharing information, but if you kind of want to like make it more personalized, you want to make it a lot more dynamic. So this is where CSS and JavaScript come in. Here we pretty much just change like how the colors look, how like some of the text look, and you can pretty much do a lot more than this. I just did enough CSS to like just change some parts of bits and pieces of it. So we know what a website is. So what's a web application? Well, it's pretty much, well, whatever you see on the internet is pretty much considered a web application, like Gmail, Facebook, NBA, or like NFL sites. So how do we figure out that those are web applications? Well, there are pretty much two ends to these. There's a browser end and there's a server end. The browser end is where like all the user interface stuff is, like the stuff on you see on the screen, all the HTML code, all the CSS, all the JavaScript code. Those are all the UI and the front end aspects. The server end aspect is all like where like all the background work is happening. So all like the database and all the server side stuff is done on the server end. So how do they generally work? Well, you first put in the URL. For this example, I'm using Google. And then those browsers like communicates with the server and just asks like, hey, I need an HTML document that goes with Google. So the server just goes looking around like, okay, let me give me some time, I'll go looking for it. The server finds that HTML, gives it back to the browser, and then the browser just interprets the HTML document and then it displays on your screen. However, there are some problems with these, even though it's like fine for like general use, but as it gets more complex and as time progresses, if you want like to get like new information, like let's say you're watching an NBA game, like the Warriors and Spurs game, you pretty much want to keep up to date with what the score is. So like if someone makes like a free throw or a three-pointer, you want to see how the score changed. Well, in order to do that with just on the normal web application, you have to refresh the page as many times as possible until really get the updated score, which is really inefficient because what you're basically doing is that like, you're telling the browser to just forcing the server to like keep looking at itself over and over again until it finds new information. And this is where WebSockets come in. It's pretty much similar to HTTP, which they're both forms of communication between a browser and a server, except it has its own advantages, such as bidirectional communication and delivering messages at low latency. What all that fancy stuff means is that, like, let's say, going back to the NBA example, like someone makes a three-pointer. Well, when the server finds that new information, it just updates it, it just pushes it back into the browser, pretty much essentially auto-refreshing it without you even touching the computer. So October, I took this time to learn HTML. So I started learning like all the tags, how to set up the HTML document, how pretty much HTML works and what kind of text, like paragraphs and headers, what can I put in here. And I started building the website, I put it on GitHub and I posted it. Except this all took a week because HTML isn't really that hard to learn. And if it's, I didn't learn that much either on Codecademy. If there's like something else I have to look up, like how to do like tables or forms, I can easily look it up on Google and then it'll just explain like how to pretty much use it. So I ended up using the rest of October just to learn CSS, since at first it looked like that, which is really boring, and I just want to put some personalization into it. So I learned CSS, got a general layout of it, how to like change some basic stuff like all the text colors, how to place images, how big the text should be, all of that. So this is what it looks like after, which, like I said before, you can do a lot more than this. Like you can place this part of it over here or something. You can put like a lot more images to demonstrate what something else means. November, I took this time to figure out how to use NetBeans. Since before I used NetBeans, I was using BlueJ, which is like really simple but not as efficient in programming. And I also took this time to refresh Java, since it's been like 6 months that I last used Java. So I started learning to use NetBeans. I started playing around with it. I made like a simple Java program that all it does is just like you put in like your name and last name, and then it spits it back out. And by the time I finished doing all this, which is mid-November, I started to look at WebSockets, how they usually work, how do the servers pretty much interpret it. And I found this tutorial that Oracle made that goes through like, WebSockets need like an open function, they do like a close function, how to pretty much just interpret it on the server. December, initially wanted to learn how to how JavaScript works, but I ended up just keep learning about WebSockets since I didn't want to ruin the flow. I didn't want to like stop in the middle of researching, so I just went on with it. So I kept like researching like what kind of functions that WebSockets needed, like what all the Java files did, pretty much all that sort of stuff. And along the way, I ran into some parts that it didn't even do beforehand, like hash set or JSON. And once I started researching, like, oh, hash set is just like another way of just putting data in, and then JSON's like, oh, it's just like a simple way of just sending information back and forth between the browser and server. And by the time when a break started, I started to learn some JavaScript, but not a lot. And that carries on to January, where I started learning about arrays lists, arrays, for loops, functions, objects, classes, all of those. And by the time I finished learning JavaScript, which is by the end of January, I started looking through the tutorial code, how their JavaScript ran, how that process pretty much worked. And by February, I started like trying to make my own. So after I learned how WebSockets function, how pretty much everything functions, and I started planning out like, okay, I need this function, I need that function, I need these variables, and to do all of this. And what I ended up doing is just like mainly just a random program. That what I did with Java, just put in your name, last name, and age or something, and it spits it back out. And I started like just keep researching like how JavaScript works and how pretty much everything works. But I finished pretty much the whole project by March, except I wanted to put this on a website, which didn't happen because GitHub didn't support Java files when I tried to put everything in here. So I started researching on how other people put in Java files, which is either they put it on the cloud service or some other service that no one really uses. But what I ended up finding is that like either some of these services are too expensive, or you can like either $30 a month, which I wasn't really willing to pay that much just to keep something simple up and running. So I ended up using most of March just to debug the program, add some stuff, change some stuff off of it. And March was also spent just looking into some other errors that I ran into, like for example, the flow problem, which I'll go over later, and just preparing for this presentation. I also ran into some issues. We can't have a program without any issues. The first issue I ran into was just when I was just building the tutorial code. Whenever I gave it some information, it would not return anything back. So I started debugging the program, and for some reason it kept showing me a 404 error, which means that like it's not finding the correct page or the correct project. So what ended up happening was that I named my project WebSocket Home _0 when I told it in the JavaScript file, I told it to look for a project called WebSocket Home, which didn't exist on my computer, so it kept giving me a 404 error. So what I had to do to fix this was just mash this name and just pretty much copy and paste it onto here, and that pretty much fixed the whole issue. And I also ran into this problem again later on, except this is not like the other issue where I ran into 404. This is more like a domain issue. So what ended up happening is that by default, the browser is set to route any information that it's supposed to have to an IP address, to 0.0.0.0, which pretty much means that like you can give the information all you want, and it's pretty much lost. You can't find it anymore. So what I had to do was just change all these 0.0.0s to something different, which I put in 127.0.0.1, which means that whatever information that the browser gives routes to this IP address, it'll just return out pretty much the exact same thing back. And by the time I finished writing the code, I noticed that whenever you put in the rate capacity, it will always return 12 for some reason. So I don't know why I did this, but we use these IDs, just like when we're like writing CSS files or JavaScript files. To pretty much like reference like if I want to like change the style of it or like change the values of these, and just to figure out like if you can see why it just keeps like returning. Well, so what ended up happening is that since I have all of these, the program just looks through and just be like, oh, you only want this value called RCAP, which the first one pops up as 12. So what I have to do to fix that is just change that RCAP to whatever the name I set to the drop-down menu, which is RAM options, which I did here. That pretty much fixed the 12 problem. The main things I got off of this were I learned HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and how to pretty much just build and design websites off of it. And I pretty much learned how servers and browsers communicate with each other, how some information is passed to using WebSockets and everything. And I pretty much learned how to use the WebSocket. Here's my bibliography. Are there any questions?
Your progress or applications?
Well, so just in my case, I used it just for like for data center use. Like if they want to like change something, like they want to change like the customer's like server, they could just easily change it, and then the server's like immediately notified of anything. But really, you can just pretty much use it for anything. Like just like instead of like NBA, you can just use like stock, since you pretty much want like the latest stock price. So.
How hackable are your servers?
I just sent the server to my computer, so easily hackable.
Can't get on that.
Okay, thank you, Si. Good job.